I feel pleasure in welcoming our next guest, who is devoted to assist people to attain better health with the principles of well-being, self-help and self-responsibility. Ms. Cate Peterson, who is the Director of Yoga Solutions in Sydney for people wanting to expand their understanding for optimum health. After many years of working in the field of body work, mental health and community development, she decided that yoga would be suitable for her clients to achieve a long and happy life. She was graduated in Bachelor's of Applied Science in Occupational Therapy in 1985. She has integrated her OHS specialization with extensive study in various bodyworks modalities, yoga, massage, shiatsu, energy work, and microbiotic nutrition. Based on her extensive studies of 5 elements, water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, her programs work with these elements and their embodiments in the seasons. And also on the premise that the only constant in this world is change, she assists people to search and for use of these rhythmic cycles with themselves. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Cate Peterson.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk today. I really am feeling very privileged to be amongst such an incredible group of presenters. First of all, I would really like to start what we're talking about today by expressing my acknowledgement of this country that I'm teaching on here, the Camaragal country in the Yuin Nation, and to extend my sincere respect to elders past and present and future, and to offer up, I guess, the hope that what I'm doing today or how we're talking today will in some way kind of contribute to the custodianship of this beautiful country and this beautiful land. And I also extend my respect, my deep, heartfelt respect to all of you in whichever part of the world you're in, and hope that your elders and your previous people will also accept my sincere respect. So I guess it's really only by conversations like Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar has invited me here today that we can really start to evolve who we are and what we think and how we move as one big humanity. And so it's deeply delightful to be able to talk. You've invited me to speak about Karuna, and I'm going to take the liberty about talking about Karuna, yes, but also talking about Kanyini, which is the local equivalent here in my home country of Australia. And I guess for me, both of those concepts, Karuna, compassion, and Kanyini, are very, very parallel, but it's best to speak to things that I know and hopefully things that will inspire all of you. So I guess that it would be best to speak about Kanyini in the words of Uncle Bob Randall. And Uncle Bob Randall is a Yakanjara elder, and they are the custodians of Uluru, or some of you might know it best as Ayers Rock. You might also know it as perhaps I'm just going to show you a little picture, as perhaps the beating heart of Australia. So this, there we go. Let's just see if I can open it up to the screen. This is, let me try that again. Okay, I'll just cancel that. Sorry, my apologies. Technology, hey. Okay, that is Uluru, and that's the beating heart of Australia. It's right in the middle of this Australia, right in the desert. And that's where Uncle Bob came from. So it's a beautiful rock, and it pulses. It pulses in the morning, it pulses at night, and it's quite amazing. So Uncle Bob was actually, I'll just stop that screen. Okay, my apologies. So Uncle Bob, I'm going to share you also a picture of Uncle Bob. Here he is. Let me see. Uncle Bob Randall has passed away now, but he was a very well-revered elder. Let me see if I can get that into the screen. There we go. That's much better. Much better. He has the big face. Anyway, so Kanyini is the local equivalent of Karuna, and its translation, I guess, is how he expresses it, is the combination of 2 words, which is responsibility and unconditional love. It's actually a relationship. It's an enormous caring with no limit. It has no time frame. It is eternal. And he says clearly, the purpose of being on this earth plane is to be of service to all that will be, to be willing to care for all things equally. So I really thank Jandamara Cad, the artist, for that beautiful picture of Uncle Bob. And if you look at it closely, you can see the contours, which is implying that we are the land, which is the name of this beautiful piece. So taking our mind now to the subject of Karuna, which of course is translated as compassion, which alongside prajna or wisdom or the understanding that there is no self, that we are the bigger self, not each of us independent selves. Those two things, Karuna and prajna, are the two wings that lift us up as a humanity, that help us to soar and to come into our full expression, which is really to our full capacity of being able and willing to be custodians not only of our own selves, but also of our communities and also of this beautiful, beautiful world. This is the full expression of being a human when we're lifted up to our highest state. Karuna, compassion, it's a beautiful word. It's not a passive word at all. It's an active word, and it expresses the willingness to bear another's pain. So without true compassion, then when we witness somebody else's grief or the grief of this world, then we're overwhelmed. We go into pain, we go into denial, we go into fear, distress. And in that state, we can be of no use. Being able to perfect karuna, or to work towards full compassion, karuna, and do that with prajna, the wisdom to understand that we are all one, that we're here in this family of life, all as one, well, that is yoga. That really is yoga. In other words, we're preparing ourselves to be of service, our body, our mind, and our spirit. That's really karuna. The parikarmas of yoga, the purification of our mind, of which there's maitri, the friendliness, there's upeksa, the indifference to evil, and the mudita, sharing in another's joy. There sits karuna as one of those 4 parikarmas. And that purification of our mind, again, takes us to a higher state of being, a higher state of yoga, which enables us to be big enough, a big enough vessel to hold all the pain in the world, to hold what we come across, to hold our own pain, and to move forward, to evolve our spirit to the very highest of human levels. So as we start to practice those 4 states of mind, ignoring evil and friendliness and relishing each other's joys as well as our compassion, then we start to come into a state of understanding ourselves in the family of all things, our state of connectedness and our state of selflessness, where we are living for others and others are living for us. And that's real wisdom. That's really prajna in its full-blown state. The practice of Tonglen, which I love to practice, and I hope some people here do too, the breathing in of suffering and the breathing out of compassion, and in of suffering and out of compassion, that capacity to take in that suffering and to be skillful enough in how we run our lives and how we practice our yoga to process that. And with that suffering, not to enter the overwhelm and the distress, but to provide the loving kindness that is required to help ourselves process the person who's presenting that process, perhaps the community, and more lately of the whole world in this terrible state that we have brought it to. So I guess that path of compassion, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. That thought, that concept, that pathway of the bodhisattva is fundamental to yoga and based on karuna. So finding our way through karuna and just knowing that that really it's about the giver creating the person that takes or receives, and the person that receives creating the person that gives. And that beautiful flow in the family of all living things, be they human or non-human, then that really, really is bring us back into a state of belonging, a state of family. And that's the highest form of yoga. So now back to our local understanding, which I hope is of interest to you. Uncle Bob spoke of Kanini, and Kanyini is a local Yakanjara word that he brought to us Westerners, those of us who are not of language and not of culture in this country, though may I hope and pray that one day we are. There's 4 component parts to the whole concept of Kanyini. The first one is Nugara, which is a sense of belonging to home and to land. And that implies the next, which is Walicha, family connecting to life. And that means that be they a small beetle or a lizard or a grain of sand or any other living creature that's come from this earth or any other living system, that those are part of us and we are part of them. And then comes the third part, which really sounds to me a lot like the word Karuna and brings to mind the question of just how much links there were in the olden days, because Australian Aboriginals have been here since the beginning of time, at least 100,000 years. Back in prehistory, before any of us are capable of remembering, how much to and fro from India was there with Aboriginal Australia. Anyway, the third part, after Walicha, after Nugara, is Kurumpa, which sounds a lot like Karuna to me, and basically means spiritual connection and nourishment that comes from understanding that we deeply belong here, right now. And that nourishment, if we don't have Kurumpa, we can't go on. That's the give and the take, the ebb and the flow with all things. And finally, the fourth part of Kanyini is Chukurpa, which is the ancient knowledge, the dream time, as we call it here. It's understanding that there always has been a set of principles, a set of laws or lore, L-O-R-E, as we call it here, that actually guides what it is to be a human. So, as Uncle Bob said, it's difficult for us to feel whole in a world that demands us to constantly divide. And really, that is the message, isn't it? Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar has brought to us, and universal consciousness is breathing and living and trying to get over. So that deep internal division leads, of course, to a feeling of external division. And if we're in that divided state, then how can we be compassionate? We're constantly trying to discern what's other, what's out there, what's not us. None of that is true. It's all us. And as we get bigger and stronger and more capable, both physically, mentally, spiritually, with our yoga practice, we're able to hold so much more. We're able to understand that all of it is us. And so that in the practice of compassion, we are practicing compassion for ourselves, for our community, and for the world. And that's real Karuna. We must come back to a state of belonging, back to that state of oneness with all humans, our non-human family, and this beautiful earth. And this can be done by following that path of Karuna, that path of compassion, and becoming as strong and healthy as we possibly can. We have to move away from our state of egocentric behavior, our egoism that sees ourselves as some kind of separate entity, and move once again into a biocentric view of things. It's what our First Nations have always done. They know, and we know deep in ourselves, especially those of us who practice yoga, that we are part of this mystery, and that mystery moves in and out of form, and we too move in and out of form. So our country, Australia, has been through the colonial era for 252 years and counting. And they've adopted English as their first language. Now, that might be self-evident to a lot of you, but I want to draw your attention in particular to a piece of the English language, a very fundamental aspect of the English language, which is the capital letter I. And it's really, something that we need to stop and think about, because as I share this with you now, let me see if I can just bring that up. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you can all see that. Let me see. Okay, there it is. Okay, the letter I. So I'd like to draw all of your attention to the form of the letter I now. And you can see it's like our spine, standing tall and straight. Between heaven and earth, yes. But at the top of us, it's squashed. It's the separation from all we know to be true, the cosmos, the deep sense of connection to the stars and the planetary system and the infinite mystery. And from the bottom, it's squashed, separating us from the earth and our sense of belonging here. And between that, we stand, disempowered, disconnected, and capable of being enslaved. And so I just want to share this last little part of my talk with you all, which is a very short 50-second video, and hope that together we can come back to a biocentric, an earth-based, a connected sense of the infinite and us as part of that, and understand our majesty and our magic, and be able to share and revel and honor that in ourselves. And the pathway for getting there is compassion, understanding that we're all connected and we're all here to participate in the evolution of the human spirit through our yoga practice. So let me just share this. I'll be quiet. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And as you can see, my hope for this is that we move back into a state of infinite wisdom, connected to the stars, connected to the fish, the trees, the beasts, and each other. And I sincerely applaud Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar's beautiful work and United Consciousness's beautiful work. And I really hope that this little piece that I've shared with you participates and assists in a really noble effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, respected Cate Peterson ji. I'm so inspired listening to what you said. I think that it is one of the best speeches on this topic I ever heard.
Oh.
It has got the best of both of the worlds. You connected us to the natives also. So beautiful concept of Kanini you mentioned, Nugra, Walicha, Kurumpa, Chukurpa, and so beautifully it nets us together in this connected world. You mentioned the definition of Karuna as a responsibility plus unconditional love with an eternal feeling of service to all. You mentioned that Karuna with Pragya becomes a yoga. And you also beautifully mentioned that Prajna, is something which teaches us that we are connected, one for all and all for one. So beautifully you elaborated upon that, how I separates us from we. And you made us understand that divisions are external and oneness is eternal. From being egocentric to be biocentric is your message that you gave all of us. And with every breath we should practice, breathe in the sufferings of the world. And with our own yoga sadhana, like Lord Shiva, he took all the poison inside and converted it into a nectar. So with our yoga sadhana, breathe out compassion. That's amazing. And it truly presents the spirit of united consciousness. If I have to pick few speeches who actually will represent what united consciousness wants to establish in the world, this speech will be one of those. So kind of you, respected Cate Peterson ji. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Vikrant.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank Ms. Cate Peterson for coming onto the platform of United Consciousness and sharing her views. Thank you so much.